Good morning, Your Excellency, distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to the opening ceremony of the 27th Conference and General Assembly of the Southeast Asian Pacific Audiovisual Archive Association, or SEAPAVAA. My name is Pimpima. You can call me shortly Peach as my nickname. I will be your MC today. Ladies and gentlemen, I would like to extend sincere gratitude to Mr. Poramet NGAMPICHET, Mayor of Pattaya City, for presiding over the opening ceremony today. This meeting is the 27th Conference of SEAPAVAA, and Thailand is so proud to play the role for the conference for the 5th time now. This year, we are honored to have Thai Film Archive Public Organization as the host of the 27th Conference. And this conference is the association's first in-person event since 2020 because of COVID-19 pandemic. The 27th SEAPAVAA Conference started on Monday the 8th of May and will continue until Saturday the 13th of May. Within 1 week, there are various activities going on, such as workshop, symposium on the topic of sustainable AV archive for community, archival gem screenings, general assembly, and cultural visit. Ladies and gentlemen, may I take this opportunity to invite Ms. Karen Chan, President of SEAPAVAA, proceed onto the stage to give welcome remarks. Please welcome.
A very warm welcome and a very good morning to everyone. On behalf of our host and SEAPAVAA, I would like to welcome all of you here, and I'm so glad to see so many familiar faces and new ones as well. We have some very special guests with us this morning, so allow me to welcome them. We have the Mayor of Pattaya, Poramet NGAMPICHET. So sorry if, excuse my pronunciation, but I hope I'm getting it right. The President of the Father Ray Foundation, in which we are so happy that we're here in this venue, Father Paul Sukhum Panaksing. We also have the Deputy Director General of Designated Areas for Sustainable Tourism Administration Public Organization, Dr. Chumpon Musika. And of course, the director of the Thai Film Archive Public Organization, who many of you will be familiar with, is Talida Yumbokit. So allow me to make a couple of thanks to Pattaya City for hosting us, to the Father Ray Foundation for the venue, and to our conference host, long-time SEAPAVAA member Thai Film Archive, for your hospitality. And a very big thank you to UNESCO Bangkok for their support. Unfortunately, I'm unable to be here, but they have sent a recording and message which you will hear in a short while. So it's been 3 years since we've met, and I'm sure all of you are, eagerly waiting to greet each other. And last year we met on a platform called Gather Town, and we're here now in Pattaya, and I'm so glad that we can actually be meeting and gathering in this city. And we have over 110 participants with us from around the world this week. And I'm sure you will find a topic or workshop or conference session that will be of interest to you. The world as we know it has changed a lot, and we've been saying this in the last 3 years, every time we meet virtually, and I'm sure when you meet in person in the next 2 or 3 days, you will find so much has truly changed. But I think that we really have overcome some massive challenges, and there are many more ahead, but there's also a lot of encouraging success in what we have done. And so this year, we're looking at a major concern for our industry, and that will be how to be sustainable, and sustainable for our community as well. And this symposium really covers some of the key topics about, and will hear from our keynote lecturer in really how this is something that we could actually explore and move forward in terms of in our work as well as our industry. And aside from thinking about work, I hope all of you will find this time. SEAPAVAA conferences have always been about rejuvenating our mind and our spirit with our fellow peers from around the world. And I say often to people that we are moved by the materials that we preserve in our collections. But we forget often and don't acknowledge enough the very people who are actually keeping our collections safe, and which is you, the archivists. And the stakeholders, the users, and the researchers who use our collections who find a source of inspiration from the work that we do. So on this note, I would like to thank everyone for being here and urge all of you to take this opportunity to build the bridges and collaborations that we hopefully will find in the coming days. So thank you so much, and I look forward to meeting all of you soon.
So next we would like to present you with the recording of the greeting message from Mr. Joe Hironaka, Chief of Communication and Information Unit, UNESCO Bangkok, one of the main sponsors for this conference.
Ladies and gentlemen, friends and colleagues of SEAPAVAA, and the Mayor of the city of Pattaya, it is my pleasure to be given the opportunity to share a few words with you today, marking 22 years of cooperation between UNESCO Bangkok and SEAPAVAA. We entered our agreement to support one another in the pursuit of our common goals in 2001, acknowledging our shared commitment to safeguard, promote, and provide access to audiovisual documentary heritage through capacity building and the exchange of knowledge and skills. At UNESCO Bangkok, we are proud to be supporting this year's conference, which will address sustainable audiovisual archives for the community. This theme is all the more relevant as we approach our aim of achieving the United Nations Sustainable Development Goals by 2030. Over the past 2 days, SEAPAVAA has been conducting workshops at a community level, the results of which will advance the engagement of nonprofit agencies in audiovisual archiving, including those supporting persons with disabilities. In fact, the archival record of a treatment facility for persons with disabilities, the Dr. Soarso Rehabilitation Center, was successfully inscribed onto the Memory of the World Asia-Pacific Regional Register last year in recognition of the center's regional impact on medical welfare. This is just one example of how archives, in this case documenting innovative methods for treatment, can contribute towards driving further innovation and achieving a more inclusive society. Working with and supporting communities from all walks of life, including women and children, indigenous peoples, and persons with disabilities, are key to sustainable development. Adopting a community approach that is inclusive will help build creativity and resilience from the ground up, and we will continue to support SEAPAVAA and its community of practitioners in doing so. UNESCO Bangkok is also pleased to see that the symposium sessions will cover other areas related to sustainability, including climate change and the environment, education and training, all of which fall under UNESCO's mandate. We are looking forward to Ms. Giovanna FOSSATI's keynote lecture on collaboration sustainability, which perfectly encapsulates SDG 16 partnerships for the Sustainable Development Goals. And we are keen to learn how communities of practitioners and users can apply creative reuse in the archiving of audiovisual heritage, a contribution towards SDG 11.4 on safeguarding cultural heritage. The archival gems screening, the highlight of each of SEAPAVAA's yearly conferences, provides an opportunity to share rediscovered footage from collections from across Southeast Asia and the Pacific, made accessible to the public through their live broadcasting on Facebook. With all these important areas of sustainability which being addressed in this conference's rich programming, UNESCO Bangkok would like to thank and congratulate SEAPAVAA for its thoughtful and professional organization, which it successfully achieves on a yearly basis. Last but not least, UNESCO Bangkok is grateful to the mayor of the city of Pattaya for hosting the conference in this great city, home to the Sanctuary of Truth, which the conference's participants will have the opportunity to visit on Saturday. In fact, audiovisual documentation of this innovative, creative, and unique form of architecture would be most welcome to safeguard architectural knowledge and inspire further innovation. With these words, UNESCO Bangkok wishes all the attendees a fruitful and pleasurable participation in the conference activities and hope that these will result in new friendships, partnerships, and collaborative community projects. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you.
And next, I would like to invite Mr. Poramet NGAMPICHET, Mayor of Pattaya City, to proceed on to the stage to give opening remarks. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome Mr. Poramet NGAMPICHET.
Distinguished guests, delegates, ladies and gentlemen, it is with my great pleasure to welcome all of you to Pattaya and to this 27th Southeast Asia Pacific Audiovisual Association Conference. As the mayor of Pattaya, it is truly an honor to have our city as a chosen venue for this highly significant conference, which gathers distinguished professionals, experts, and scholars from audio-visual archiving field to share their knowledge, insight, and ideas about sustainable audio-visual archive for community. I believe the discussion and deliberations will take place over the course of conference will contribute to the development of your representative fields while benefiting the wider community. Pattaya is highly sought after tourist destination in Thailand. Annually, more than 10 million visitors are attracted to Pattaya to experience the beauty of its beaches and nearby islands, various activities, warm hospitality, and great selection of restaurants and bars. Little known to many, Pattaya is also a famous film location in Thailand, receiving about 300 requests to be used as a chosen location annually. At present, Pattaya aimed to apply to join the UNESCO Creative Cities Network as a city of film within the next 5 years. I am confident that you will find Pattaya to be a welcoming and inspiring environment to the duration of your stay. I would like to take this opportunity to acknowledge Thai Film Archive Public Organization, the main host the conference, who have worked tirelessly to make this event possible. I would also like to express my sincere appreciation to UNESCO, the decided area for the Sustainable Tourism Administration Public Organization and Fatherly Foundation for their sponsorship and support. Their commitment and dedication to advancing knowledge and promoting audiovisual archiving excellence is truly commendable, and I am grateful for their support. Once again, I extend my warmest welcome to each of you and wish you a productive and enjoyable conference in Pattaya. Thank you.
Thank you very much to everyone. Please remain on stage. แล้วก็ท่านยังคงอยู่บนเวทีกับเรานะคะเพื่อที่จะทำพิธีต่อค่ะ In organizing the conference, the organizer has been well supported by several organizations. Therefore, I'd like to invite Mr. Poramet to present token of appreciation to the supporting alliance. I will call upon one by one. First, I would like to invite Father Sukhu Thanasin, the President of Father Ray Foundation. Okay, Father journalists, please welcome in front of our stage and record the photo. And please remain on stage with us. Okay. And next, I would like to invite Dr. Chupon Musikanon, the Deputy Director General of Designated Areas for Sustainable Tourism Administration, Clubbing Organization. And we will also invite Ms. Karanjan to present token of appreciation to Mr. Poramet NGAMPICHET. And that is the photo session. Please welcome Father Ray's Dr. Chupon Musikanon again on the stage. And may I invite Executive Councilors of SEAPAVAA on stage for a good photo session. Please welcome forward to the stage for the photo opportunity. Please welcome. Okay, so the journalists. Please take a big photo and recording the video of this day of the 27th Conference of SEAPAVAA. I will remind once again that for this event started on Monday, the 8th of May, and will continue until Saturday, the 13th of May. Within 1 week, there are various activities going on, such as workshop, symposium on the topic of sustainable AV archive for community, archival gem screening, general assembly, and cultural visit. And also, thank you very much for everyone. So, for the journalists, for more information, if you want to interview our distinguished guests, you can do it at the breakdown in front of our event. And next, it will be the keynote lecture session. Ladies and gentlemen, may I give the floor to Ms. Karanjan to introduce us the 27th SEAPAVAA Conference keynote speaker, Ms. Giovanna FOSSATI from my Filmmuseum. And it's time for me to say, have a very wonderful conference. See you again in this evening. And welcome dinner party. Thank you very much, everybody.
It's muted. But I'm really happy to be able to introduce our keynote speaker, Giovanna FOSSATI. I think some of us will be familiar with Giovanna. We've heard her speak and attended some of her conferences that she's attended or she organized. But this is her first time at the SEAPAVAA event and her first time here in Pattaya City as well, I believe. So welcome, and I think this morning Giovanna will be speaking about global audiovisual archiving and putting forth the notion of working together towards a global and collaborative and inclusive approach toward in archiving. And I guess she is hoping to also, I'm hoping that we will gain from her insights how we can promote an exchange of practices and knowledge, and also to kind of think about the long-term sustainability strategies that we could, I suppose, adopt. Right? Just a short bio, and I'm sure all of you have read Giovanna's accomplishments, but a quick note that she is actually the chief curator of the Filmmuseum and a professor of film heritage and digital film culture at the University of Amsterdam. And she's an author of several books already and an editor. And I think there's some projects that I'm so eager to look forward to. And so without further ado, let us put our hands together for Giovanna.
Good morning. Can you hear me? Okay. Well, first of all, I would like to thank the SEAPAVAA Executive Council for asking me to join for the special edition of the conference. As we've heard, it's special because we are meeting again in person after 3 years of online gatherings. In particular, I would like to thank the wonderful Karen Chan and Sanchai Chotiroseranei, whose work I greatly admire. And last but not least, thank you to Chalida Wahunjit and the Thai Film Archive team for their warm welcome and generous hospitality. I had the pleasure to visit their archive yesterday. It has been fantastic. Thank you. I felt extremely honored to receive your invitation, and I'm very grateful for all the input Karen and Sanchai generously shared with me about SEAPAVAA, its community, and the challenges our fellow audiovisual archivists, you all, face in the Southeast Asian and Pacific regions. To be honest, I'm feeling quite unsure about what I can say today that is relevant and useful for you and your work. I have worked in this field for 27 years, but my experience is mainly within very specific and limited regions, namely Europe and North America. With the exception of a visit to Australia many years ago, this is actually my first trip to this side of the globe. When talking about my contribution, Karen and Sanchai mentioned my commitment to what I refer to as global audiovisual archiving, as something that they felt to be interesting and useful to discuss with the SEAPAVAA community. I intend global audiovisual archiving mainly as a goal for audiovisual heritage professionals and scholars. A shift in perspective where collaboration and exchange on a global level become the driving force of our activities, where we together share the honor and responsibility of building strategies for preservation and access that need to be sustainable and representative of our diverse global heritage. Flattered to be asked to share my thoughts with you while preparing this talk, I also came to realize that I'm here mainly to invite you to share your thoughts and ideas with me. Indeed, I'm eager to know more about the work you all do in your archives. And I'm eager to start new conversations that I hope will lead to new collaborative initiatives and international projects. That's why my talk is intended in the first place as a call for collaboration. But first, let me try to explain a little better what I mean with the shift towards global audiovisual archiving. Since a few years now, I feel that working together towards a truly global approach to audiovisual heritage is one of the most urgent challenges for our field. Especially during the pandemic, I realized that an alarming misrepresentation of our global audiovisual heritage is occurring, and it was particularly visible in the digital space. Whereas audiovisual heritage institutions in Europe and North America, in particular, national archives and commercial ones, are eagerly digitizing their own national heritage, with a number of notable exceptions, heritage institutions in the rest of the world are just at the beginning of the digitization process. As a consequence, heritage from these regions is hardly visible for audiences online, and most researchers and curators mainly focus on audiovisual collections that are preserved, digitized, and made accessible. If we look closely, this is also the case when comparing larger heritage institutions with smaller audiovisual archives, including the regional archives, non-institutional organizations, counter-archives, collectives, and so forth. This is true everywhere, including Europe and North America, where smaller initiatives struggle to preserve and present their collections. What can we, researchers and archivists across the world, do to change this? The COVID-19 pandemic and recent catastrophic events caused by climate change have made global disparity even clearer. The increasing demand for online presence of audiovisual heritage collections from researchers, curators, and audiences in general offers a potential opportunity to rebalance access across borders and economies. However, online presence until now has privileged the archives that had already digitized part of their collection and had a digital infrastructure in place. So the global disparity has increased in the digital space. Recent tragedies have left our community in search for ways to help our colleagues in need overcome national perspectives and unite under a more global vision of our field. Examples are the recent fire at Cinemateca Brasileira in São Paulo in 2021, among government's cuts that had led to the dismissal of its technical staff and had severely jeopardized its preservation and presentation efforts. The archives suffered a fire at one of its vaults that held many thousand films and millions of documents. Since then, the archive has resumed activities with a small budget, a small team in 2022, and has recently reopened its doors to the audience. The fire was felt as a wake-up call to the international community of audiovisual professionals who expressed their solidarity with their colleagues at Cinemateca Brasileira and condemned the Brazilian government's neglect of heritage institutions. Also, the fate of Afghan film in Kabul after the withdrawal of international forces and the return of the Taliban regime in Afghanistan in 2021. The image is from the 2019 documentary, The Forbidden Reel, by Canadian-Afghan filmmaker Ariel Znaz, who had unprecedented access to Afghanistan's National Film Archive. He documented the richness of a film culture that had been hidden during the previous Taliban regime from 1996 to 2001 and now risks to be lost forever, with a few exceptions such as those films that have been restored and digitized for the making of The Forbidden Reel. Not to forget the strenuous circumstances in which the NGO Save Myanmar Film operates since it was founded in 2017. Here, when Sanchai accepted the best archival project of the region on behalf of the Save Myanmar Film team from Ray Edmondson during the 2019 SEAPAVAA Conference. Since then, and after the 2021 coup, things have only become more challenging. And of course, the dramatic situation of our colleagues at the Dovchenko National Center in Kyiv, who struggle to keep their collections safe while their lives are at risk since the Russian invasion last year. These are just few examples that have been covered by international news, but there are of course many more local struggles that jeopardize the work of many colleagues worldwide. As we speak, too many audiovisual collections are at risk of disappearing, neglected if not proactively endangered, or risking damage or destruction due to devastating climate conditions. These events are pushing our community to search for ways to help our colleagues in need, overcome national perspectives, and unite under a more global vision of our field. I think these concerns are shared by many, as it transpires from the discussion taking place within archives, within archival associations, among professionals, researchers, and students alike. At this point, more than ever, we feel a sense of urgency. The clock is ticking as audiovisual heritage that is not digitized in the near future, even when it is preserved in analog form, risks becoming unmapped, unresearched, uncurated, unseen. In short, invisible. At this point, I feel it is necessary to mention the importance of not confusing digitization with preservation. Indeed, digitizing audiovisual collections without a solid preservation strategy for both the analog originals and the digital masters will in no way guarantee their long-term preservation. Also, digital preservation requires important investments in terms of equipment, expertise, and long-term migration strategies that can be prohibitively expensive even for privileged archives. However, here, I want to focus on the urgency to make a more global and inclusive audiovisual heritage visible through digital access, as I strongly believe that privileging preservation should not prevent access. To reach a more balanced representation of our global audiovisual heritage in the digital space, a radical change in approach to research and practice is needed before it is too late. First of all, researchers and professionals involved in audiovisual archiving worldwide need to work together and develop new approaches to make digitization and related research activities an all-inclusive endeavor. Second, we need to develop new archival methodologies that are informed by specific contexts, leading to a novel global audiovisual archival theory for guiding research and curatorship aimed at preservation, presentation, and access. In this effort, sustainable practices and standards for digitization and digital preservation and environmentally sound alternatives in terms of policies and practices should be explored. With the exception of media preservation expert Linda Tadic, who was the keynote at the SEAPAVAA Conference in 2021, there is still too little research carried out in our field to develop such This ambitious agenda requires further contextualization. In recent years, many audiovisual archives and research institutions in richer countries have actively digitized, focused on their own national heritage. I will name a few examples of such endeavors in the non-profit sphere, starting with the one I'm most familiar with, the project Images for the Future in the Netherlands. For this unique project, in terms of manpower and capital investment, Filmmuseum, the National Institute for Sound and Vision, and the Dutch National Archive collaborated between 2007 and 2014 with the aim of preserving and digitizing film and video heritage and making it available online. During this period, one of the partners, Filmmuseum, digitized about 20% of its entire film collection of 55,000 titles. After the end of the project, the Dutch Film Archive kept on digitizing approximately 200 titles a year and managed to set up a digital storage and digital preservation strategy. During the more recent project Unlocking Film Heritage, active between 2013 and 2017, the British Film Institute and other UK national and regional archives digitized 10,000 film titles from their collections and made them available online through platforms such as the BFI Player. Another more recent example is the Media Digitization and Preservation Initiative at Indiana University that took place between 2015 and 2021 and has become the largest university-led media preservation project in the United States and one of the largest in the world. Its aim was to digitally preserve and digitize more than 35,000 items of audio, video, and film and make them available for scholars worldwide. While even in larger European and North American archives, thanks to these kind of projects, only a fraction of all analog audiovisual collections have been digitized. These initiatives have helped set up digital infrastructures, knowledge centers, and workflows that will allow steady progress in the digitization and digital access of collections, mainly carried out on a national level. Because of the digitization delay elsewhere and the still too limited knowledge exchange in the academic and archival community, audiovisual heritage from most regions and from smaller archives is often inaccessible for researchers and curators, and is unfortunately excluded from research projects and curatorial efforts. Furthermore, in the last 2 decades, research on the cultural, political, economic, and practical consequences of the digitization of audiovisual archives in Europe and in North America led to theory forming focused mainly on developments in these areas and based on film and media frameworks that originate from Western theoretical discourses. This has been the case with my own research, the transition from analog to digital, in film archives and the underlying theoretical frameworks, published originally in 2009 and updated in 2018. There, I focused exclusively on film heritage in European and North American institutions. At first, I accepted the exclusion of research theories and practices outside these regions and outside institutional environments as a necessary choice of scope. Later on, I have become increasingly frustrated with this limitation, to the point that today I consider filling this gap as the most important challenge for the entire audiovisual field, from researchers to archivists, and for my own research and curatorial agenda. I came to consider that preservation, restoration, digitization and curation priorities in most European heritage institutions still go hand in hand with a dominant theoretical perspective borrowed from other heritage fields, something that can be defined as a monumental approach, typically focused on highbrow restoration of only a selected numbers of titles, often related to national values. In the academic field, these approaches have been long discussed, but they are still central to the institutional strategy and national subsidies rationales from which institutions can hardly escape. In Europe, for instance, where audiovisual archives and museums are often subsidized and have a solid relationship with funding entities, most heritage institutions have built their preservation policy around concepts of national heritage. Although many audiovisual archives and museums include in their preservation activities also foreign films that have had an influence on national culture, the practice is based on criteria of quality, for instance, the auteur perspective or the film as art framework, as developed in the European context and relevant for a specific national cultural heritage. With the ongoing discussion on decolonizing archives and museum collections and the rising concern for a diverse and inclusive representation in the cultural sector, things are changing, but at a very slow pace. On top of that, audiovisual works are very often cultural products that rise from international collaboration efforts. With the exception of national propaganda, for instance, most audiovisual heritage is born either from the curiosity to discover the world in all its diversities and or from the intention of crossing borders, either through international co-production or international distribution, or both. In my own experience, since I was a student in the 1990s, one of the main reasons that brought me towards film archives was the curiosity of the unknown, the idea that there was much more to be discovered than what was shown to me in cinemas, on TV, or at the time on VHS tapes. Discovering the hidden treasure of the archive was my main goal as a student and a starting professional. Later, as an archivist, discovering forgotten films, screening them in theaters, and making them accessible to a larger audience online have become my priorities. But, as I said earlier, in the last few years, and especially during the lockdown and the shifted focus to online digital space, I have come to realize more than ever that what is held in larger European national archives is really only a fraction of the audiovisual heritage that exists and that should be preserved and shared. It is clear to me that much more needs to be done to change our field and open it up to a more global model of exchange and collaboration. I'm not pleading for a utopian idea of preserving everything and making it all digitally available. I realize very well that it wouldn't be possible and probably not even desirable. What I plead for is to change our approach to preservation and access to audiovisual heritage and make it more of a collaborative effort rather than an overwhelming mission each archive is facing by itself, confronted with goals and standards that, in most cases, are unachievable and unsustainable. The initiatives I'm going to illustrate now go in this direction and can serve as models for a renewed approach to audiovisual archiving. These are very important and exemplary projects that have pointed towards a different, more global and collaborative approach to archival practice and research. I would like to start by mentioning the Audiovisual Preservation Exchange Project, also known as APEX, promoted by New York University since 2008 and led by Professor Giovanna Suarez, a leading figure in research into audiovisual archives in Latin America. APEX promotes international collaboration and enables audiovisual archival community members to exchange knowledge and skills. Sessions of typically 1 to 2 weeks are organized every year in different countries, hosted by different larger and smaller organizations. Students and professionals join local colleagues and work together on a selected project. In the past 15 years, APEX has visited Ghana, Colombia, Uruguay, Argentina, Chile, Spain, the Netherlands, and Mexico. In Giovanna Suarez's words, I quote, "APEX is based on a vision of sharing information horizontally by involving students, professionals, artists, communities, archivists, and film enthusiasts in an effort to find answers to problems in a collaborative fashion while networking and learning from each other." The uniqueness of this program lays on the way activities take place. Work and conservation always occur during hands-on activities with collections, providing the perfect setting to discover new issues and possible solutions in an immersive educational experience. End of quote. Another initiative worth mentioning is the collaboration between the University of Jos and the Nigerian Film Corporation, both in Nigeria, and the Goethe University, the Deutsches Film Institute and Filmmuseum, and Arsenal Institute for Film and Video Art, all in Germany. Here, exchanges of students and staff between the audiovisual archival programs based respectively in Frankfurt and Jos, focusing on archival projects provided by the partner institutions, has created a fertile ground for exchange of knowledge and practices. Also, the African Film Heritage Project should be mentioned here, a partnership between UNESCO, the Pan-African Federation of Filmmakers, represented by film scholar Abubakar Sanogo on the left in this picture, and the Film Foundation, founded by filmmaker Martin Scorsese on the right. This project set out to restore 50 African film titles, selected by an advisory board made up of archivists, scholars, and filmmakers active across the African continent. As remarked by Sanogo, I quote, "The African Archival Project is ambitious and not only about restoration, but also about the creation of infrastructure for film preservation. At the time, we were on the ground ourselves to stop the destruction of archives through inclement weather, human negligence, and political intervention. There are all kinds of difficulties facing African archives. This was a vehicle to raise awareness of cultural heritage on the continent and around the world, and to lobby governments to do something about it." End of quote. In this list, the collaboration efforts carried out by the International Federation of Film Archives, or FIAF, both in terms of outreach and support, should also be mentioned, with trainings being organized regularly and hosting professionals and students. In recent years, a number of trainings have been hosted in India, partnering with the Film Heritage Foundation, which was set up by Shivendra Singh Tungarpur in Mumbai in 2014. Another example of collaborative initiative, the Film Heritage Foundation is the only non-governmental organization in the country working in the field of film preservation, holding a film collection and offering training and educational programs. Also, the Archive Counter-Archive project in Canada, running from 2018 to 2025, is exemplary in its efforts to define new archival practices based on the collaboration with communities. Its goals are enhance access of Canada's citizens and indigenous, Inuit and Métis peoples to their own audiovisual cultural heritage, and advocate for an audiovisual action plan that speaks to the various needs of community collections shaped by indigenous protocols around cultural property, sovereignty, and repatriation. Let's not forget the long-standing non-institutional initiatives such as Giovanni's Pan-African Cinema Archive, which are leading the way to a more horizontal and global approach to audiovisual archiving. Founded by Giovanni, a British Caribbean film curator active since the early 1980s, the Pan-African Archive holds more than 10,000 items, including films, television programs, and film-related documents, all made by or related to African diaspora communities. Another recent non-institutional initiative is the discovery of Indonesia's first female director, Ratna Asmara. Kelas Liarsip, a collective of film scholars, archivists and curators, under the motto, "Keep discovering and preserving women's work in cinema," set out to write Asmara's forgotten history and restore her 1952 film, Dr. Samsi. Last year, two members of this collective, film archivist Giovanna Raman and curator Umi Lestari, came to Filmmuseum in Amsterdam to premiere the restoration of Dr. Samsi during the series of lectures and screening This is Film Heritage in Practice. The presentation that was later published online, see the first link on the screen, and the screening of the rescued Dr. Samsi made a big impact on me, my students, and the audience at the sold-out program. Check out the video series Devising Ratna Asmara, produced by Kelas Liarsip's collective efforts. That's the second link on the slide. Finally, I would like to name in passing an ongoing collaboration between the Asian Film Archive and Filmmuseum, in which films from the two archives will be paired in a very intriguing curatorial joint venture within the extremely original series at AFA titled Reciprocal, an annual collaborative film program that spotlights the archival collections of AFA and a partnering archive. The program is being created as we speak in a close collaboration between the Asian Film Archive's curator Chu Te Pao and Filmmuseum's curator Eli Perongen Kainakchi. And it will be screened in June. I think all these initiatives help us formulate new questions for our field. These include questions such as, how could a global approach change audiovisual archival practices of acquisition, selection, cataloging, preservation, restoration, access, curation, and presentation? How would that in turn affect the programming of film museums and streaming platforms? What kind of content would be available online for audiences, education and reuse, if online access would truly represent a global audiovisual history? How can we increase the digital availability of films from underrepresented countries and support a structural system of collaboration and exchange between film archives worldwide? How can we develop policies and practices for digitization, digital preservation and access that are practical and sustainable, also for archives with limited resources? In this line, I believe that policies and practices currently embraced by many larger archives need to be revised by looking for alternatives that are environmentally friendly and community-based. A case in point is the ongoing discussion, the ever-ongoing discussion on film restoration and its focus on high digital film resolutions from 2K to 8K and beyond as the golden standard for the field. Such standards are only sustainable for a very small number of commercial and national archives. And even in those cases, the long-term digital preservation of entire collections at such high standards might become unsustainable. For these reasons, rediscussing digitization standards in view of a more global approach to audiovisual heritage and of a sustainable strategy for long-term digital preservation is necessary and urgent for the entire field. As a start, we need to create a basis to promote long-term exchange of knowledge and learning, and a discussion platform for sharing practices between audiovisual scholars and archivists of all regions. This is a call to our global community to work together in this direction. I would like to briefly review a number of important recent events that have focused on this agenda in the last few years. Here we see an image of the panel Socio-Political Diversity of Film Archives, Transitions from the Past to the Future, moderated by Maral Mosenin during the 2019 FIAP Symposium in Lausanne. The participants were the Central States Film Archive in Albania, the Azerbaijan State Film Fund, Cinematheque Beirut, and the Cinematheque of North Macedonia. Here you see an image of the Inward-Outward Symposium. This event has been held in 2020, 2021, and recently in 2023, as a collaboration between the Royal Netherlands Institute of Southeast Asian and Caribbean Studies, the Netherlands Institute for Sound and Vision, and the Research Center for Material Culture. And also I'd like to mention the Symposium After the Archive, organized in 2021 by Arsenal and Goethe University in Berlin, that will have a new edition later this year. More recently, in May 2020, the International Conference also embraced this topic. This annual conference is a collaboration between Filmmuseum and the University of Amsterdam, with the Association of Moving Image Archivists, AMIA, also partnering for the 2022 edition. The conference worked with an advisory board that includes experts active in various countries in Latin America, Africa, and Asia, including Bakar Sanogo, Ines Ezengat Menezes, Juana Suarez, Judith Opoku Boateng, Karen Chan, Isabola Rahman, Maral Mosenin, Martino Cipriani, and Nur Waidal. Approximately 200 participants in person and more than 100 online attended. 70 speakers from very diverse realities from within and outside of formalized institutions worldwide presented at the event. During and after the conference, we discussed the idea of making global audiovisual archiving a biennial traveling event, as we felt that it would fill a gap left open by existing archival academic conferences. A gap between different geographic, economic and cultural realities that we so much want to bridge through dialogue and exchange. The advisory board has embraced this idea, and we may already have a candidate for hosting the 2024 edition, which we hope it will be announced soon. In 2026, Filmmuseum has offered to revisit the topic in its annual event, and we hope that we will soon find other fellow archives to host future editions. It would be wonderful if the Global Audiovisual Archiving Conference will bring us together again in Southeast Asian and Pacific regions in the not-too-distant future. Indeed, as I mentioned at the beginning, this talk is mainly a call for collaboration, to work together at exchanging knowledge and practices. I look forward to further discuss this topic with you today and in the coming days. And for now, I'm grateful to many colleagues who have shared their ideas about this topic. In particular, I would like to thank Karen Chan, Sanchai Chutro-Serani, and Gent, Ferdinand Smith, Floris Palman, and Maral Muselina for their invaluable input. And thank you all for your attention.
Okay, thank you, Giovanna. You've touched on so many topics. I don't think we have quite enough time to do this Q&A, but we do have about, let me see, maybe 15 minutes of Q&A time. And I know it takes a little bit of time for everybody to warm up, so I'm going to start with one question. And I guess that's the elephant in the room, and that how can SEAPAVAA and its members make that change, or how do you envision that change for what we come to as an association?
That's indeed the elephant in the room, and a very challenging question. Also because, as I said, I'm new to this community, so in many ways I need to learn from you and understand more about how you work, but more in general. I think this is the change I'm talking about. It's not going to happen in a couple of months, a couple of years. This is a long-term change. And I think everybody and all archival communities can move towards this by opening up really to collaborations. Archives worldwide have gone such a long way in the past 20 years. I think this is true for all archives worldwide. We used to be closed institutions, closed in many ways, and without getting too much into the details, there were also good reasons to be closed. But things have changed. We've become open institutions, open in the sense that we are opening up our collections to the audience in different ways, in our cinemas, when we have cinemas, online, when we can offer online, sometimes with very interesting and creative ways, mobile cinemas, and so forth. But we also open up to work with the community. I think this is one of the most important change. It's the most recent change, but it is something that I think will revolutionize revolutionize our field. At the end of the day, who are we preserving these films for? It is for the communities. So working with them is, I think, the most natural next step. And I imagine this is true also for the SEAPAVAA community.
Absolutely, and I think the idea of community reaches beyond just our national community and something that we could think about. And I don't think it's exactly new, this regional sort of community, but it's this idea of opening up. And perhaps this could be the sort of side benefit of the pandemic happening, that we have become so much more open and ready for our collections to be discovered in some way. But you said something in your keynote that I thought was interesting, because you mentioned creating long-term exchanges. And I think we've been trying to exchange, but in my sort of memory, they're largely short-term. Sometimes we meet at a conference, we're all, excited about it, and then we have one exchange, and then we stop. Right? And I believe maybe in the audience, many of you have already had exchanges with fellow archivists and organizations outside of your community. But how many of us have continued that exchange? Perhaps this is something we need to explore more. And do you see how that can be actually, sort of sustained?
Yeah, that's definitely a point. I think if I look at it from our experience at Filmmuseum, I see long-term collaborations with always the same partners. And I think this needs to change. And the only way it can change is to create time. And time is a problem nowadays. But you really need, or archives really need, archivists really need to realize that to start new collaboration partnerships, you need to free up time, which maybe means that there will be collaborations that have gone on for a long time and are easy and are comfortable, that maybe need to be reduced to create time for other collaborations. Projects, collaborating with, for instance, universities to create research projects that include international partners, scholars and archivists. And even if this project, we all know, maybe lasts 2 to 5 years, depending on the scope, still this is the beginning of creating new connections that will lead to new collaborations. So again, it's not a question of, as you said, having one exchange, one small, but trying to work on a longer term. I mean, all relationships are made of investing time, right?
Absolutely. Okay, I guess on this note, talking about the investment of time and resources, obviously a lot of us are feeling the crunch of the last few years in terms of budget cuts, of manpower shortage, of collections that have perhaps come and rested on our shoulders as a result of, or maybe taken a more much, right? And I'm wondering, within our audience, there may be something that you're experiencing now that you would like to share, but perhaps raise as a question to Giovanna as to how something like this, in terms of examples, that we could overcome as a way to work with each other. Are there perhaps any questions or any points of sharing that anybody would like to raise. Yes, Janida, yes.
Actually, maybe it's just repeat what you have asked, but I've been thinking about collaboration. Like usually we more like share the collection, but actually maybe in our region, most of us are like under-resourced, and if we can share, maybe share the resource that we have, like equipment and like in the past, like when we talk about the standard of preservation and so on, everyone just think like which machine, which scanner we're gonna purchase, but I just realized that maybe not every archive need to have a scanner or a storage, or like if we can share those resource and try to make it like long term, that can be an option, or we can do like actually it's something. SEAPAVAA have done that maybe in the 90s that we try to share the metadata or something. But now I think we can create a project that, let's say we have the equipment and people send some people to work on the collection, and so that we can get those things digitized and can share the digitized film on certain platform or something that maybe already exists, and without we create new things, but just make use of what we all have, but just like kind of open the suitcase or the like the bag and what we have, and then we share the things that we have together. But my question is like where we're gonna start? Yeah.
Where do we start?
Well, thank you, Janida. This is a very important point. Not only the sharing of collections, but indeed the sharing of resources, of expertise. I think we see. I think the FIAF for a few years has started now grant for exchanging, for training and exchanging staff members, and I see it's not, from repeated calls, I see it's not taken up very often. So, which I understand, because as all of you, I work in an organization, organize something like that, it's always difficult. But this kind of exchange, when you can learn from another archive and vice versa, exchanging stuff or resources, indeed. For instance, in the Netherlands, it's true that we've been extremely fortunate to be the new museum and a new collection center, but we still have a major problem. Our nitrate collection is stored in vaults that are really not up to the task. So we are now working for a new nitrate vault with, thanks to collaboration with the Research Institute, we have a plan, but now we need partners. So we are really talking with all partners on regional levels within the Netherlands, but also all the neighboring countries, because sharing a nitrate storage, or any storage, or even sharing laboratory facilities, we really don't need to have each their own laboratory. We can work together.
Yeah. I think in our community, we've had archives do something of this nature. I think SEAPAVAA did initiate a project or two on this, and it's probably something that we can resurface and investigate and explore. And certainly I would call upon members to give us ideas, to think of where we could actually work a little bit better, and in terms and within our network, and drawing perhaps expertise from outside our region as well to really boost the efforts on that, right? Yeah.
Maybe one more point just to name is, for instance, on digital preservation. Digital preservation is a gigantic effort, economically, infrastructurally, expertise. I don't think we all need to have their own LTO robot. That's definitely something where archives can team up. On top of that, an ideal digital preservation strategy includes that you have at least 2 copies. The best thing is to have 2 sister archives, so they can keep their reciprocal, exactly. That's a fantastic starting point.
I suppose coming out of that statement though, is that a lot of us here are national agencies. And perhaps that's the difficulty that we're kind of navigating. How do we create something like this in terms of sharing? Or even within agencies in your own country could already be difficult. And I'm wondering if anyone here may actually have that experience, or maybe you managed to surmount that difficulty and found a way to work together. If anybody has anything to share about that, that would be fantastic. Or if you have any other questions for Giovanna, go ahead. This year, we do have someone.
Hi.
Hello.
Just when you asked to share, we are sharing a lot of resources from many countries like US, Canada.
I will just wait for that microphone. Yes.
Yeah, we are based out of Los Angeles, Burbank, California, and also we have facilities in India, and we are sharing from many studios and archival people who want restoration. So we are saving the artist's resources. So after you scan the footage, we try to clean them and make it pristine. So digital cleaning. So we are trying to share. And if anybody wants some storage in the US, we can help talking to other studios and help for the storage services.
Okay. I'm getting quite a bit of feedback from the sound, so it's not very clear. But am I understanding you're talking about
the resources sharing for
a student
service
exchange?
Yes.
Right.
So if you need some resources, we can provide anywhere in the global. So they'll come and help you restore your footage digitally, for digital restoration.
I see. So involving students from universities, for instance, and working with archives, that's actually a very, very good way.
Yeah, no, definitely, and I'm glad that we are bringing up this topic of working with students. I think my work and my agenda as a researcher has been influenced so much by the fact that I've been involved and I've been teaching at the Master Preservation and Presentation of a Living Image in Amsterdam for 20 years now, and working with students and seeing them all doing internships literally around the world and connecting with archives and archival realities in different regions and continents has been so important to me and to us. And I see this new generation of young archivists that have really a different attitude. They are much less nationally oriented. They don't look for work where they were born and grew up. So in that sense, I think encouraging the exchange of students, creating programs, working together with university, creating programs, international programs, and let's be honest, in most of our, at least bigger cities around the world, we already have an international community. Our students and our younger colleagues already have that more global approach to the film. And in that sense, I'm really hoping it will kind of move towards that direction naturally because of this new generation coming in.
Yes, thank you. I hope that gave some, yes. We have about time for one more question, if anybody has any. Suddenly we have quite a few hands up.
Hello.
Hello.
Rebecca from the National Film and Sound
Yes,
Library in
Rebecca.
Australia. I just wanted to let everyone know that we are interested in talking about sharing resources and sharing training and equipment. We've been lucky enough, last night was budget night in Australia, and we've been lucky enough to receive our biggest funding boost in 20 years. So we have the equipment, we have the storage, we have a willingness to engage. So I just want to put my hand up and say, please come and chat to me if you're interested. We're certainly in a position now, post-COVID, to be able to talk to people about partnerships.
Fantastic. Rebecca, it's great to see you, and I think you have many people approaching you. And go talk to Rebecca and find out a little bit more. We're very glad that NFSC is here for the conference. I think it was Joshua, right? Joshua.
Hi, I'm Joshua from Archives New Zealand. I would just like to add on the point of digital preservation. And one of the examples that I have is that Archives New Zealand share the same digitization platform as the National Library of New Zealand. And this has been a collaboration since 2012. And we coexist and we work together very closely. So our digital preservation team and their team regularly catch up almost every day. And then we, like you say, digital preservation, there are some things that are quite similar across all institutions. And there are a lot of things that you can do together. In fact, we are toying with the idea of digital preservation as a service. It would be hard for us to do it across outside of New Zealand, but the idea is to provide this kind of service within New Zealand for other agencies who have the same kind of legal mandate to do digital preservation. In that sense, we don't have to keep recreating the wheel of what we think as what digital preservation is supposed to be, and other people can share the services. Just an example.
That's wonderful. Thank you.
Yeah, it's great, and I think Joshua mentioned something about the legal framework as well, and that's something that perhaps we don't have as much experience with. Maybe that's something you could talk about.
Talking about elephants in the room, I think I often tell to my students, don't forget copyright. It's also a field you might want to explore for your future profession. There are two little archivists or film scholars working with Film Archive who focus on the copyrights question. One of the few I know is Claudia Blenkamp. If you have a chance, check out her book, The Greatest Films Never Seen, because she really stretches the boundaries of both film archiving and copyright. And I think we, the archival community, can actually do much more than we do define what we think are copyright restrictions. I mean, there are a lot of copyright restrictions. Don't try to do anything with the Disney film because you are not going anywhere. But there are so many other films that we can consider orphan films or whose makers would be only happy if we share them with. And in that sense, I think archives can take a little more risks in sharing. But we need to also for that, we need to join forces and reach the critical mass to be brave.
Yes, indeed. And on that note, to be brave, we shall wrap up this session. Thank you, Giovanna, and thank you for being here and asking your questions. So, I believe we're going to have a half an hour break for coffee and tea, and for for catch-up, and then we'll start the symposium right after that. Sanchai, would that be?
Yes, just some housekeeping.
Okay, some housekeeping. Yes, thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Giovanna and Karen.